Joining us now, NBC News senior correspondent Garrett Haake, and back with us, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. So, Garrett, we're talking a lot about the weeds, about documents, hearing dates, trial dates, how much time the defense needs. Let's put this back into the original context, which is that Alvin Bragg is trying to say that payment to Stormy Daniels, agreed to on October 8th, made on October 27th, I believe, was actually election interference. And that's why he's trying to prove, will be trying to prove to a jury, that it is a felony.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, ironically, on that point, he and Donald Trump sort of agree, although I don't use the same term, the idea of election interference, whether it's the trial or the underlying act, as Alvin Bragg in New York City alleges in this case. It's 34 counts of essentially business fraud, changing the accounting, changing the underwriting to account for that money and how it was spent and why it was spent in that fashion, as you just laid out, and what could have been a very politically precarious moment for Donald Trump's campaign. And now jurors are going to have about 6 weeks from mid-April through perhaps the end of May. I always sort of take the over when it comes to these Trump hearings and legal matters and assume it will take longer than that to parse the relevant details. Although, Katie, interestingly enough, they will not see the tape you just played. The judge has already ruled in this case that that tape itself will not be admissible, although describing its contents will be. Although it's hard to imagine anybody in New York City or anywhere else in the country who probably is not familiar with that story by now.
Yeah, but you know, you might not remember, Lisa, the details around that moment. And that's why I played that clip there, because even me watching it back today, I forgot a lot of what was happening at that time, the allegations, the Alicia Machado stuff, the suburban women worries. The moment for the campaign was one of concern that they were not going to win because of their loss among women. So that's why I think what makes the Michael Cohen payment around that time, the agreement especially, really interesting.
It makes it totally interesting. And I just want to say, not being able to show that tape while they can describe it, I think is actually a big loss for the DA's office. Having watched the E. Jean Carroll trials, and the first one in particular, where that Access Hollywood tape was played, where Donald Trump's deposition, where he was confronted with the Access Hollywood tape and what he said on it by E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, was also played. Seeing it is one thing, hearing it is another. And I don't think hearing it alone will have the same impact as described by an ADA as it does when you see the full tape.
What is the background? Why is he not allowing that tape to be played?
So I think Merchan has decided here, this is Judge Juan Merchan of the New York Supreme Court, has decided it would be prejudicial because here it's not being shown as proof of Donald Trump's intent. It's rather to set some context, to show, as you just said, that at that moment in time, when Michael Cohen was negotiating with Keith Davidson, who was Stormy Daniels' lawyer, about that payoff, that the campaign was in a meltdown moment. This was a catastrophic time for them. They were exceptionally concerned about the impact of the Access Hollywood tape. And when Stormy Daniels then materializes and they have the opportunity to get her to be quiet about her affair with the former president, they take that opportunity and then belatedly try and paper it over. The campaign finance crime here is not being charged as such. It's a false business records crime in order to conceal or commit another crime, which is the campaign finance crime.
Garrett, Donald Trump's defense is likely going to be that he didn't know that this was going to Stormy Daniels, correct?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big part of it, Katie, to try to distance himself from this as much as possible and essentially argue that these were, nuisance payments. He's a billionaire. He's got money coming and going all the time. And then what Michael Cohen was up to was not necessarily something that he was keeping a very close watch on. I mean, I think about when Michael Cohen testified before Congress and he talked about this idea that Donald Trump didn't necessarily tell you exactly what to do, but he made it clear what he wanted. The manner in which Donald Trump ran his business and the way in which he either gave orders or made himself clear on issues that were important to him, how he communicated, I think will be central to this case and perhaps to Donald Trump's defense of kind of what was going on under his nose and whether or not he was aware of it at the time.
Garrett, an April 15th trial start date. Do we know how long it's supposed to last, expected to last?
Katie, I write it down. I say take the over. The state has said they think this will take about 6 weeks. That's the presumption of how long this could go. But as we've seen, I was standing on this street corner a year ago waiting for this indictment to occur and this arraignment to happen in this case. everything involved in this case and all of the cases with Donald Trump have taken longer than projected. I'd assume it goes, well into May, perhaps even, trails into June. Who knows? But I can't imagine it's going to be shorter than advertised.
Seating a jury. I was on with Charles Coleman a little bit earlier. He said it could take 2 weeks to seat a jury. What are going to be the issues with trying to get a jury in this case? And are they going to be different than getting a jury for the E. Jean Carroll case?
I think they will be similar, but a little bit different. Obviously, he's being accused of a crime here, and so that raises the stakes substantially. It also changes the composition of the jury in terms of how many jurors are needed here as opposed to in a civil case. But most importantly, it's going to be really very hotly contested who can serve on this jury and sort of what the prerequisites are and how you exclude people. One of the things that two sides are going to fight over is what is your media diet and how specific do people have to be about that? And already we've seen indicia that they're fighting over, well, can you ask someone if they watch MSNBC? And if you do, will you ask them if they watch Fox? And what is the equivalent of various media outlets? They really want to try and take out of the equation anybody who is perceived as being overly partisan on either side.
So could it take maybe 2 weeks, as Charles predicted?
It could take 2 weeks, but again, what we've seen from Judge Wagner so far is fairly no nonsense. He definitely has allowed the Trump side to have its say, but he is not like Justice Arthur Engoron, who was very relaxed and lenient during the trial of the civil fraud case. We should expect that Judge Merchan is going to run a tighter ship, more akin to Judge Lou Kaplan in the E. Jean Carroll trials.
The hearing today was pretty quick, and
yes,
he shut down Trump's lawyers quickly when they asked for more time. He said he saw no reason to delay any further. Lisa Rubin, Garrett Haake, thank you guys very much.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.